Okay, this is a little simple project, hopefully my entry for the Christmas ornament. I don't think it's going to win anything. It's just a sort of a theme for this particular piece. I've designed one of these before, so I know sort of what I'm going to try and attempt. But basically I'm going to make a Christmas cracker, which will actually be either usable as a Christmas cracker, sort of refillable one, if you want to do that kind of thing, or as a present box if you're giving a gift to somebody. Obviously you can size it whichever way you want. I've picked out this piece of sycamore, it's good and dry, and let's start shaping it up. Basically what I want to do is cut off a section because I want to try and keep a grain match if I can through the piece. So that will be one end of the cracker. Then I'm going to hollow it out, form that end, bring it all back together, form the other end, do some decoration, and we'll see what we end up with. Right, so I'm going to put that to one side, and now we'll start hollowing the piece. Right, some people don't like using spade bits for hollowing. I've had no trouble up till now, but knowing my looking on camera, this is where it'll all go wrong. I'm just going to use this to drill down as far as I can, and then I'll widen out with tools and get this wall thickness to where I want it. Okay, that's about as good as I'm going to get it. Okay, so I've got a good depth in there. I'm just going to mark that depth on the outside, obviously using a precision chisel. Okay, so that's where I can start forming the top end or bottom end of this and shaping it up. First, I think I need to get that hollowing done. What I'm having a problem with is, much as I'd love to use the carbide cutter here, now that might work. I'm having to run a little bit higher on the wall than I'd want to. Let's hope that doesn't induce a catch, just because the bottom here is catching at the bottom there against the piece, so I'm getting it rubbing on two edges. Yeah, that's a lot better. I'm actually getting a good cut as well. Right. Yeah, I think I'm just going to smooth that all in, try and even it up a little bit. It's all by feel at the moment, which is the frustration. Okay, so I've pretty much got the wall thickness I now want and the fit I want. I'm going to tighten that up a bit by tapering away. I think the next thing I'm going to do now is sand this down, so when I do come to fit this piece, I'm fitting it to the sanded surface I'm finally going to use, rather than losing too much in the sanding process later. So, time to dress this section up, and I'm also going to start cutting away the back shape, which will be repeated twice, so give it the general cracker shape. It's going to be one of those days, a bit of run back there, a bit more care needed. Now what I'm going to do is just transfer the length of the cracker to the other end. Done a fairly good job of matching those two up. It's a fairly simple profile. Right, I'm just going to give this outside shape a clean up now, and then I'll start the outside sand and sand the inside of the main box. Okay, made a bit of a goof. One of my favourites is failing to get the fit quite right, and once I sanded down the inner section there, I just completely lost the fit on this piece. I can't really do what I'd normally do, which was to take it back that way, because I'm going to lose all the proportion. So what I'm going to do is true this face off as best I can, grain match another piece into its place, glue it up, and then true that up to become the connection between the two. It's at least out the same piece of wood, so I've got a fighting chance. Doesn't look like it's going to be too bad, and it's a good way of recovering this piece. Nothing clever for this, just a bit of good old PVA glue. Just get a good bond, but I also want to make sure I've vaguely got that match I was looking for. Nice bit of run out. Lovely, time to leave that to dry. Okay, I've let that glue up overnight, it's good and solid. I'm now just going to turn that down and make a fairly lengthy tenon. It's probably a fortunate accident, as I checked the previous one I'd made, and actually to get a good fit here, so you get a bit of a pop as it pulls apart, is not a bad thing. So I think I'm going to leave this fairly long, and then I'll just redo the outside and get the match there. So I'm going to take this nice and slow. First off, I'm going to get a very rough fit at this end, mark it up, and then just gently take that in and get it right this time. Okay, so that's loose, so I can tighten it up. Okay, that's a lot closer. So I'll take the whole thing down to that level and then we'll fit it. I'm going to try and resist my usual urge to rush on and just keep going steadily at this. Still not quite there. There we go, we're starting to get a fit. So if I push it on, I should get a line so I can see where this is actually going. Right, I think what I'll now do is quickly take off some of this excess. I don't really want as much as I've got here for the stopper, so I'm going to probably about half that and just quickly take that away, and then we'll get the final fitting done. Okay, I'm just going to flush up this face, give it a nice finish on that end, and then I'll be ready to do the final fitting. And I'll probably just do that with sanding and sneak up on it. So I've rejoined the cracker. Unfortunately I didn't have a centre on that from cutting it off, which is a bit frustrating. I haven't quite been able to get it back on centre, but close enough, because actually the bit I want to work on is down here, and just get that smoothed back in together. Eventually that will be hidden by a point line, which will cover up that join really nicely, and we've got a pretty good grain match going on, so I'm pretty happy with that. I've now just got to shape inside the two ends and do this little bit, and then we'll be ready for the next step. So I'm going to do the two ends by chucking them up both individually. This one might be a bit tricky, we'll see how we get on, and just try and hollow those out and give them a nice feel, and then it'll be time for some decoration. What I'm going to do is remount it this way on, because I still do have a centre to get it all lined up with. So that's pretty good. Now I'm hoping I can get a tight enough grip on this. I'm going to do most of it with the centre in place, and then I'll try and come back. Some marks on it, unfortunately, from clamping up the last time, which I'll have to try and sand out. Yeah, I've not really got access there. I'm going to have to rely on the fact that I'm just going to be pushing down, be very gentle. So I'm going to get the side done and cleaned up. I'm just going to do a clean up cut on that. See if I can get rid of some of these marks. Okay, needs a little bit more. They are quite deep. Okay, that's most of it gone. That can sand up. Right, I'm going to try and just take the tail stock away and work down into the middle gently, and see if we can just shape up a bit this centre of this and just hollow it away, give it a bit of a lightness at the end, a bit of finesse. Okay, I've cut out one of the ends, and I'm going to do the same at the other end. I've had a couple of cracks appear during the process of doing that, a bit frustrating. I'm just going to try and hollow out that end to match. This time I'm not quite so sure how well I'm going to get on, because obviously I'm mounting that a long way from the chuck. I might even try changing over the chuck jaws, we will see. I just don't see how I'm going to get a grip on that. Right, change of plans. What I'm going to try and do is drill this out on the drill press. Maybe I should try another set of jaws. I've got some smaller ones that would fit inside this and might hold it better. Well, that's what we bought them for, let's give them a go. colour me impressed. That seems to have got a really firm grip on that. It's running pretty true. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can work with that. Again, this end's got a little bit of work it could be done on it, but I'm going to just trim that off now. Give me a chance to feel how stable this really is undercutting. Okay, well I think the rest will have to sand out. This wood is proving to be a little bit chippy along the lines, but I think we'll get a good result with some sandpaper at the end. Right, let's see if we can do this again. Yeah, this is what I was concerned about. Lightest little catch there, and it's moved. It's still remarkably solid, but it's moved. Okay, tensioned it up as much as I dare. I'm going to see if I'm going to work with the square-ended one first. Right, I think we may. Right, well that's over tightened and it's split. So I think we're going to have to re-glue that quickly. See if we can recover this. Well, I thought those jaws were going to work, but no. What I'm doing is leaving the gap open under the pressure, getting a good wipe of glue in there, and then I'm going to bring it off the lathe, and there you go, see the squeeze out as it pulls itself in. I'm just going to give that a good clean up now while it's still wet. Pain. Right, we've got to let that dry now, and then we can have a go at a different technique. Well, at least I found one good use for these jaws. Make a good clamp while I'm gluing this back up. Okay, well, it hit me about 5 seconds after I'd put it into this that obviously this was the way around. I should really have been trying to use these jaws, and actually they might really help. They've got a fairly strong grip, but mainly they're going to help hold that end stable. So I might just tighten it up a little bit and see if I can do that end hollowing I was trying to achieve. So I've got it remounted. I've got it as square as I can. What I'm going to do is re-true it, I think, at this point. I've just got a bit of a wobble in, because I want to put some lining into it. I don't want that wobble to be there because I'm going to end up with an sort of eccentric groove that isn't as pronounced on one side as on the other. So I'm going to try and gently true it up again, get a final sort of finishing cut, and then I want to move on to the lining and take it from there. Okay, that's not perfectly on true. I'm getting some interesting shaping, which I'll have to deal with a bit of sanding. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to start to put the groove in. As you can see, the join has almost disappeared anyway, but this grooving and marking will help to hide it even further. I'm just going to use a simple point tool to achieve this. Right, they're working quite nicely, apart from that extra mark I've got there. But I am having slight problems with the fact that it's still not quite close enough to true. So the line's going very thin round the back, and then quite nice and pronounced at the front. So I think I'm going to have to try and just true this up a little bit more, see if I can get those marks a bit more consistent. It gives it a sort of antique feel, which is what I was kind of after, but maybe a bit more antique than I intended. Okay, that's a sort of reasonable compromise. So I'm going to burn those marks in. I'll just define this one a little bit more. Burn these marks in and then do the final sand up. And then we're ready for finishing. Right, obviously you can go as nuts as you want with the design. Add as many bands, but I think this will work nicely. Okay. Time to get some sanding done. But maybe first I better get the pyrography bit done and burn those lines in. This is an old guitar string made between two turn handles, very simple. Let's get this one out of the way. So I'm just going to damp it down. I've sanded it to 240. I'm just going to give it a damp over to raise the grain. As I said, I'm going to use some waterproof dye on this. I think this one's going to be predominantly red. I might try and put a bit of a sunburst on it. We'll see, maybe with a yellow in the middle. But I'm looking for a faded antique effect with the eventual thing. Just try and make sure I've got water everywhere, but it's not wringing, dripping wet as you can see, and that should nicely raise the grain. Right, I'm going to leave that to dry and then we'll sand it again, and then I'll show you the next stage, which is the dyeing. Right, so I'm going to stain it now. I've sanded it, wet it and re-sand it. In fact, I've just spotted a little sanding mark there I'm not happy with. I'll just treat that before one of the things you've got to be a bit careful of when you're staining. I've discovered, of course, little scratches like this, which I bet you can hardly see on the camera, do tend to get emphasised by the dye, and they really will stand out. So if I don't deal with them now, I'm going to be fighting them later. So I'll be back in a mo. Okay, so we're going to get on with staining this. Now what I want to end up with is a stronger stain towards each end, and a little bit sort of flushed out in the middle, give it a sort of antique look. Right, so I've just got a little plastic container, small amount of the red dye, and that's just chestnut spirit stain. Right, so what I'm going to do is brush it on fairly neat for the first coat, but concentrating more on the ends. I don't mind if it's a little bit thinner in the middle. You may just be able to see what I said about those lines showing up. I've definitely got some marks there that I'm going to have to work on. But this was supposed to look a little antique, just I think that's more antique than I wanted. Just really making sure I get a reasonable covering this time. The sponge seems to help give a nice even covering. I used to brush it on, but actually found that I didn't really get the balance I was looking for doing it that way. Let's just do this end. Should have found myself another glove. I've now got red fingers. There we go. So let's make sure I've covered everything reasonably. And then what I'll do is sand back in the middle to take that colour down a bit. Now what I'm going to do is leave that to dry, and then we'll come back and put some more on it in a bit. Okay, so hopefully you can see here that what I've done is just sanded down the middle and tried to just take it back to the point that the wood was just starting to peek through again, slightly pink. Now what I'm going to do is restain the two ends, which I haven't sanded in that way. I'm going to restain those and take them darker, and see if I can get sort of graduation through in both directions. I think we need a little bit more stain. Okay, this is chestnut gilt cream, gold. I haven't found much excuse to use it, but I bought it for a similar sort of festive project. Interesting stuff to use. I've only used it the once, said reasonably successfully, but I think the trick is to just make sure you've got a small area that you're working with and you get it well coated, and then you get it on where you want it fairly liberally. It does move around and you can play with it. Probably did half that off camera. Let's get it down into the little valley there. Right, yeah, maybe too thick there. The thing with this stuff is you can keep working it. Anyway, I'm going to try and spread some of the excess. See, that's more the effect I was looking for. It's gone on too thick. But the joy of this stuff is you can just keep working it down. I'm just going to try and transfer some of the excess I've got at that end around. I do need to get some into the back of these as well. Yeah, I think that's more the effect I was looking for. So let's keep moving it around. Yeah, it's starting to now go off workable, so this is one point at which you can actually get quite a bit of it back off. Just try and spread the last of it around, but so mainly this end it went on thicker than I wanted. As you can see, you can actually just keep working it and take it back down a bit, so it's slightly less gaudy. I'll just keep transferring a bit of that. Yeah, I think I'm happy with how it is this end, but this is still too much. So you can just keep working at it. I'll clean it out of the grooves before it totally dries. Again, I'm not taking it into the middle. There we go. That's a bit more like I was after. Something a little bit understated. Now I think this is something you could just carry on doing and do more and more intricate patterns with it. There's plenty of room in this project, but this was to try and show you the basic principle and the point that you should wear gloves. If you want to turn this into a gift box, it's obviously very simple. I can't remember which end pops off and which end doesn't. There we go. So that allows you to put a present inside and give it to somebody, sort of novel. If you wanted to turn it into a reusable cracker, all you'd have to do is drill a hole through each end, and I used to thread the cracker snap through if you wanted to use them, or you could just put party hats, whatever you want in it, and have them as a reusable family heirloom. Completely up to you. I'm going to give this a bit of a cleaning up now, and then we'll get round to finishing it, and I'll show you the finished product. So there we have the finished product. I've given it a couple of coats of shellac, and it'll get a little bit more, but that's basically it. Opens up to form the box itself, and closed, the join's invisible. Anyway, that's my entry. Thanks very much for watching. See you soon.